Most aliens wonder how the hell humans survive on Earth, because the planet seems designed to kill them. Yet humans, somehow, still thrive. Captain Zorax, a seasoned Zorgonian explorer, carefully piloted his ship, the Zorgos, toward an uncharted blue planet. He was intrigued by the swirling white clouds, deep blue oceans, and massive green continents. His scans revealed a nitrogen-oxygen atmosphere, liquid water, and thriving ecosystems, a good prospect for cataloging. But as Zorax approached the planet, he was shocked to discover it was inhabited by a species called humans. He watched their cities and vehicles, stunned that such a primitive species could survive here. The planet, which Zorax named Earth, seemed designed to kill them. His probes revealed vicious predators, toxic plants, virulent diseases and deadly weather. Acid rain, lightning storms, hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, avalanches, earthquakes, volcanoes, sinkholes and wildfires. Poisonous snakes, giant bears, huge cats, massive sharks, and swarms of parasites, bacteria, viruses, prions, and brain-eating amoebas. Baffled, Zorax wondered how the hell the soft, fragile humans could survive in such a death trap. Their cities would provide some protection, but many humans lived in the wild among the deadly threats. Zorax had to know their secret. He selected a remote forest clearing and landed the Zorgos. Camouflaging his ship, he crept toward a pack of humans, desperate to learn how they survived in this hellscape. Zorax, Crix, and Thorgon stepped out of the Zorgos, their bodies shimmering as their cloaking devices activated. To any human observer, they would appear as nondescript Terran life forms, perhaps unusually colored badgers or raccoons. Zorax sniffed the air, taking in the scent of pine needles and earth. It was nothing like the recycled air of the ship, and he found it strangely invigorating. "Remember, we are here to observe, not interfere," Zorax reminded his crew. Crix rolled his eyes, but Thorgon nodded in agreement. They began to creep through the underbrush, sensors trained on the surrounding area. It wasn't long before they stumbled upon a group of humans. 5 of them sat around a campfire, laughing and talking. They had pitched tents nearby, and had evidently been hiking, judging by the large packs scattered around. The leader of the group, a rugged man with a scruffy beard, was in the middle of telling a story. "So there I was, face to face with this giant grizzly. I swear it was as tall as I was, but I knew I couldn't run, so I just stood my ground and made myself look as big as possible. And you know what? It worked. The bear turned tail and ran off into the woods." The other humans around the campfire gasped and applauded. The man, who Zorax heard them call Jack, took a mock bow. Zorax watched in fascination as the humans went about their tasks. One was tending the fire, adding logs to keep it burning bright. 2 others were setting up a makeshift shelter, lashing branches together with rope. Another had emptied a pack full of berries and roots. Apparently they had been foraging for their dinner. "Incredible," Zorax murmured. "They have harnessed fire, built shelter, and found sustenance, all with primitive tools." Crix snorted derisively. "They're barely more than animals. We should capture one, bring it back to the ship for study." Zorax rounded on him, keeping his voice low. "Absolutely not. We are here to learn, not to interfere with their way of life." Crix looked mutinous, but a glare from Thorgon kept him in line. They settled in to observe the humans as the night wore on. The humans ate their foraged meal and settled into their tents for the night. Zorax and his team were about to return to the ship when a roar split the night air. The humans burst from their tents, grabbing weapons. A massive bear, easily 3 times the size of a human, burst into the clearing. It reared up on its hind legs, swiping at the nearest tent with claws like knives. Jack didn't hesitate. He grabbed a primitive weapon, a long stick with a sharpened rock lashed to the end, and charged the bear. Zorax watched, his heart in his throat, as Jack swung the weapon at the bear's face. The creature roared in pain and anger, but Jack kept coming, jabbing and swinging. The other humans joined the fray, yelling and waving torches. The bear, faced with this onslaught, finally turned and fled back into the forest. Jack, breathing hard, turned to check on his companions. Zorax was awestruck. He had just watched a primitive being face down a monstrous predator with nothing but a sharpened stick. The bravery, the skill, the sheer audacity. It was unlike anything he had seen before. He signaled to Crix and Thorgon, and they slipped back into the night. Zorax's mind was reeling as they made their way back to the ship. These humans were more than they appeared. They had an inner strength, a resilience that allowed them to thrive in the face of overwhelming odds. Zorax was more determined than ever to unravel their secrets. The next morning, Zorax and his team were up early, eager to continue their observation of the humans. They followed at a distance as Jack and his group packed up their camp and set out on a hike through the dense forest. The terrain was treacherous, with steep inclines, loose rocks, and hidden roots waiting to trip up the unwary. But the humans navigated it with ease, their sturdy boots finding purchase on even the most precarious of footholds. Zorax watched, his admiration growing, as they clambered over boulders and ducked under low-hanging branches. The sun climbed higher in the sky, and the heat became oppressive. Zorax, used to the climate-controlled environment of the Zorgos, found himself panting and sweating. But the humans seemed unaffected, even as sweat poured down their faces. They simply paused to drink from their canteens and then pressed on. Insects buzzed around them, drawn by the humans' body heat and sweat. Zorax watched as one particularly large specimen landed on Jack's neck and bit down. Jack slapped at it, but otherwise ignored the pest. Zorax marveled at their tolerance for discomfort. As they walked, Zorax overheard snatches of conversation between the humans. They talked and laughed, seeming completely at ease in this hostile environment. It was clear that this was not their first foray into the wilderness. But not everyone was as impressed with the humans as Zorax was. Crix had been growing increasingly agitated as they observed the Terrans. Now, as they paused for a rest, he pulled Zorax aside. "We need to do something about these humans," Crix hissed. "They're a threat to the galaxy." Zorax was taken aback. "What are you talking about? They're just a primitive species trying to survive." Crix shook his head vehemently. "No, they're more than that. Look at them. They're strong, resilient, and fearless. If they ever made it to the stars, they could be a danger to us all." Zorax couldn't believe what he was hearing. "You're overreacting. They're centuries away from achieving spaceflight." But Crix wasn't listening. He had pulled out a communicator and was speaking in low tones. Zorax strained to hear what he was saying. "Territon request permission to neutralize the threat. These humans cannot be allowed to—" Zorax snatched the communicator out of Crix's hand. "What do you think you're doing?" he demanded. Crix glared at him. "I'm doing what needs to be done. These humans are dangerous. We need to wipe them out before they can threaten us." Zorax was furious. He turned to Thorgon, who had been listening to the exchange. "Thorgon, you can't possibly agree with this madness." Thorgon shook his head. "No, I'm with you, Captain. We came here to learn, not to interfere. What Crix is suggesting goes against everything we stand for." Crix sneered at them both. "You're both fools. You'll see when the humans are swarming across the galaxy that I was right." With that, he turned and stormed off into the forest, leaving Zorax and Thorgon staring after him in shock. Zorax knew he had to stop Crix before he did something terrible, but he also knew that he couldn't let the humans see them. They had to remain hidden, no matter what. He turned to Thorgon. "Come on, we need to stop him before he does something we'll all regret." Together they set off after Crix, moving as quietly as they could through the undergrowth. Zorax's mind was racing. He had come to this planet to learn, to understand these fascinating creatures, but now it seemed he would have to protect them from one of his own. Zorax's heart pounded as he and Thorgon raced through the forest, desperately searching for Crix. They had to find him before he did something unforgivable. The thought of him harming the humans made Zorax's stomach churn. "There!" Thorgon hissed, pointing ahead. Zorax followed his gaze and saw Crix standing at the edge of a cliff, his plasma rifle aimed at Jack and his group below. They were setting up camp for the night, unaware of the danger above them. Zorax and Thorgon crept forward, trying to stay out of sight. But as they got closer, Crix spotted them. His eyes narrowed, and he tightened his grip on the rifle. Crix, don't do this, Zorax said, his voice low and urgent. These humans have done nothing to us. They don't deserve to die. Crix sneered. They're a threat, Zorax, a threat to the galaxy. We have to eliminate them before they can spread. Zorax shook his head. No, Crix, they're not a threat. They're just trying to survive like any other species. We have no right to interfere. Crix's finger tightened on the trigger. I'm done arguing with you, Zorax. I'm going to do what needs to be done. Suddenly, a blinding flash of light lit up the sky. A bolt of lightning struck a nearby tree, setting it ablaze. The humans below shouted in alarm, but they didn't panic. Instead, they sprang into action. Jack barked orders, directing his team to gather water and dig a firebreak. They worked together seamlessly, passing buckets of water and shoveling dirt with practiced efficiency. Zorax watched in amazement as they battled the blaze, their faces grim with determination. Look at them, he said to Crix. Look at how they work together, how they face danger without fear. These are not the actions of a threat, Crix. These are the actions of a species to be admired. Crix hesitated, his rifle still aimed at the humans. But as he watched them fight the fire, something in his expression changed. His grip on the weapon loosened. Thorgon saw his chance. He lunged forward, grabbing the rifle and wrenching it out of Crix's hands. Crix let out a cry of rage, but Thorgon held firm. It's over, Crix, Zorax said. We're not going to hurt these humans. We're going to learn from them. Crix glared at him, but he didn't argue. He knew he was outnumbered. Below them, the humans had managed to contain the fire. They stood back, panting and sweating, but victorious. Jack clapped his team on the back, praising their quick thinking and bravery. Zorax felt a swell of admiration for these remarkable creatures. They had faced down a monstrous predator, navigated treacherous terrain, and now battled a raging wildfire, all without the advanced technology that his own species relied on. These humans were not just survivors, they were warriors. He turned to Thorgon and Crix. We're done here, he said. We're going back to the ship, and when we return home, we're going to tell the High Command about what we've seen here. We're going to tell them that the humans are not a threat, but a species to be respected and admired. Thorgon nodded in agreement, but Crix just scowled. Zorax knew he would have to keep a close eye on him to make sure he didn't try anything else. But for now, he was content to leave the humans in peace. As they made their way back to the Zorgos, Zorax couldn't help but marvel at the incredible strength and resilience of the human species. They had come to this planet expecting to find primitive savages, but instead they had discovered a people of remarkable courage and ingenuity. He knew that he would never forget his time on Earth, and he silently vowed to do everything in his power to protect these extraordinary creatures. The galaxy needed them, even if it didn't know it yet. The smoke from the extinguished wildfire still hung in the air as Zorax dragged a struggling Crix back to the Zorgos. Thorgon followed close behind, keeping a watchful eye on their prisoner. Once inside the ship, Zorax shoved Crix into a holding cell and activated the energy barrier. "You can't do this," Crix shouted, pounding his fists against the shimmering wall of his prison. "Those humans are a menace. They need to be wiped out." Zorax ignored his crewmates' ranting and strode to the communication console. He took a deep breath, composing himself before activating the link to the Zorgonian High Command. "Captain Zorax," the holographic image of Commander Xyloth greeted him. "We received your emergency transmission. What have you to report?" Zorax straightened his posture. "Commander, I have made a startling discovery on the planet Earth. The dominant species, the humans, possess a resilience and adaptability unlike anything I have ever witnessed." He proceeded to recount the events of the past few days, from the humans' ability to survive in the harsh wilderness to their bravery in the face of danger. He described how Jack had fearlessly defended his group against a monstrous predator, and how the humans had worked together to contain a raging wildfire. "These humans are not a threat, Commander," Zorax said, his voice filled with conviction. "They are a species with incredible potential. I implore the High Command to leave Earth undisturbed and allow the humans to continue their development without interference." Commander Xyloth was silent for a moment, considering Zorax's words. "Your report is most intriguing, Captain. The High Command will need to discuss this matter further, but for now we will trust your judgment. Earth shall remain off-limits to Zorgonian interference." Zorax felt a wave of relief wash over him. "Thank you, Commander. I believe this is the right decision." As the communication ended, Thorgon placed a hand on Zorax's shoulder. "You did well, Captain. The humans are lucky to have you as their advocate." Zorax nodded, his thoughts still on the planet below. He made his way to the observation deck where he gazed out at the blue and green orb that was Earth. From this distance, it looked so peaceful, so innocent. But Zorax knew the truth. He had seen firsthand the dangers that lurked on the surface, the countless ways the planet seemed to conspire against its inhabitants. And yet the humans persevered. They adapted, they innovated, they fought tooth and nail for their survival. Zorax thought back to Jack and his group, how they had faced each challenge with unwavering determination. They had no advanced weapons, no high-tech gadgets, but they had something far more valuable, an unbreakable spirit. As the Zorgos prepared to depart, Zorax made a silent promise to himself. He would share the story of the humans with his people, to show them that true strength lies not in conquest or technological superiority, but in the courage to face adversity head-on. The ship hummed to life, the stars blurring as it leaped into hyperspace. Zorax settled into his command chair, a smile playing on his lips. He had set out on this mission seeking knowledge, but he had found something far greater, a newfound respect for the indomitable will of a species that refused to surrender no matter the odds. Earth grew smaller in the viewscreen, a tiny speck against the vast expanse of space. But Zorax knew that the planet and its inhabitants would forever loom large in his mind. For he had borne witness to the incredible resilience of the human spirit, and that was a tale worth sharing with the galaxy. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.